Welcome to the Point Cybersecurity Podcast. Each week, join Eric Trexler and Rachel Lyon to explore the latest in global cybersecurity news, trending topics, and industry transformation initiatives impacting governments, enterprises, and our way of life. Now, let's get to the point.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of To the Point Podcast. I'm Rachel Lyon, here with my co-host, Eric Trexler. Eric, changing
Rachel?
it up this week, a little later in the week doing the podcast. I kind of like it.
It's my vacation got in the way. I apologize. I ended up working the whole time anyway, so really we didn't need to reschedule it.
Oh, bummer.
It's
Okay. Well, that's kind of a Debbie Downer to kick it off.
Well, the podcast is always the highlight of my week. It really is. So let me bring it right back up. The podcast is always the highlight. I just didn't have any recording equipment. I was in Tampa visiting the in-laws. So really didn't have a recording space or equipment.
Understood. Wow. Welcome back.
Thank you.
We missed you.
Feel like I never left. Who do we have today?
Okay, get ready because this is going to be a really fun conversation. It's probably like a 6-part episode that we're setting up for. We've got Dr. Siwei Lyu. He's a SUNY Empire Innovation Professor at the Department of Computer Science and Engineering. He's the director of UB Media Forensic Lab and the founding co-director of Center for Information Integrity at the University at Buffalo, State University of New York. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining us, Dr. Lyu. Rachel cut your bio by about 2/3 of it out. If we read the whole thing, we'd be here for 20 minutes. You are quite accomplished in this
So
space.
accomplished. It's kind of amazing. And you're like in a really hot area, the whole deepfakes thing. And, I saw your DeepFake-o-meter. I mean, there's so much we have to talk about today. I don't know if we have enough time.
The DeepFake-o-meter is the best.
The best. Yes. Do you, so I guess let's start at the beginning. I mean, how did you find your way to deepfakes?
Yeah, it's quite interesting, actually. I started working my PhD degree starting 2001, working in this area called multimedia forensics. So back in the old days, multimedia forensics, meaning, we want to detect if somebody Photoshop an image, or, digitally beautify a face, make it look nicer. Those are serious problems, but relatively speaking, those are low tech and it's only like, a few weeks in your lung, that kind of thing. You just kind of, their existence. Everybody know they're bad, but nobody really takes it seriously. But what is kind of interesting is another research interest, a branch of my research interest is in artificial intelligence, more particularly in computer vision and machine learning. So those are core areas behind those AI algorithms. And, on that side, I'm trying to use algorithm to do a lot of interesting things. So it was actually in 2018, early 2018, it was in a technical conference. I met with a colleague and he mentioned to me this thing called deepfakes. And I was very, intrigued by what it is. And he told me it was basically somebody using an AI algorithm, create a fake video, and spread it online. And a lot of people seem to be fooled by it. And this is almost like a magical moment because it just joined the two major interests of my research into one single point. In the past, I've been working on media forensics algorithms, but not particularly using a lot of AI algorithms. On the other hand, I'm working on AI algorithms, but doing totally different things. And now here is a chance that I can combine both of them. And also after digging in a little bit more, I sort of feel like the potential significant negative impact this kind of technology can have to the society. And I think, it's that moment I got, both scientifically curious about this topic and also socially aware that, the impact this can have to us, to everyone. So I feel like this is going to be a very interesting research topic to investigate and have my student working on this. And in about 3-4 months, we come up with our first method and everything starts from there. Yeah.
No kidding. I feel like deepfakes, a lot of people talk about them. They have a high level understanding of what a deepfake is.
Right.
But I have yet to run into many people who actually think about it in their day-to-day business or what they're doing. They don't look at some YouTube video or some Twitter video or some TikTok, whatever it may be, and really question, did Nancy Pelosi really say that?
Right.
Or is that a deep fake and somebody's trying? I just want, in my travels and speaking with people, they're aware of deep fakes, Dr. Lyu. They don't seem to apply that awareness and practice in day-to-day practice.
Right.
I mean, are you seeing the same thing?
Yes, initially at least. Right now, I think a lot of people talk about deepfakes and they become more aware of it. Just like one little note, the Nancy Pelosi video where we saw, I think 2 years ago, become viral on YouTube. That was actually not a deepfake. People call it shallow fake or cheap fake. The way it was created was actually by slowing down the playback speed of that video. So make her sound like, slow talking, a little bit slurpy, this kind of feelings. But no AI algorithm is used and no content was actually changed. It was just the representation of the content. So that's, so this come back to the definition of deepfakes. What do we mean by deepfakes? It's basically a strict name. I usually use the name AI synthesized media to make it sound a bit more neutral. Deepfakes necessarily carry this negative feeling with it. But what do we mean by deepfakes? Using that term is to refer all forms of audiovisual media that are either synthesized completely or manipulated with the help of AI, and particularly something we call deep learning technology. So deep learning is a special type of technology in AI. So you combine the term deep learning and fake media to coin the term deepfakes. So that's basically the origin of these kind of things. Now, I think people are becoming more and more aware of deepfakes these days, simply because it's so up many, many times in media, and we are seeing a lot of examples coming, emerging on all the social platforms. I can count on my finger, for some of the most recent examples. Very recently, there's this synthesized video of Ukrainian President
Zelensky,
talking about all the Ukrainian citizens putting down their weapons and surrender to the Russians, right? And just 2 days ago, I was interviewed by MSNBC. They found out a fake TikTok account impersonating actor Robert Pattinson. And it was a viral video because it looked so similar to the real person, and the video got millions of views and spread it fast online. So I think, as we're seeing more and more of these examples, people are becoming more aware of it.
They're aware that they're out there, or they're aware that what they're watching could be a deep fake and could be influencing their perceptions of reality.
I think mostly the former. They aware the existence of deepfakes, but we actually did we did a study, do a survey of some online users. We found that they almost everybody know the existence of deepfakes, but when we actually ask them, have you ever seen a deepfake that without your awareness, not something pointing to this as a deepfake and look at that, but something you figure out as a deepfake? Almost nobody said they have seen some. So I think, the aware, we talk about two levels of awareness. One is the awareness of their existence. The other is the awareness of the closeness of that existence to every one of us. I have to say, there are a couple of reasons for this. One particular one is the deepfakes we're seeing now are mostly making for fun or exaggeration like that. So we haven't, for whatever reason, we haven't seen a deepfake video that is sneaking in, that is, look realistic enough, but conveying a message not so ridiculous or outrageous. This is subtle, but it's misleading. I think that kind of deepfakes will really cause concerns. But, for some reason we haven't seen that. But I think technically that's already possible. We're just not seeing them. Many examples at this moment, but that doesn't speak for the future.
Is there any research out there showing what percentage of the population, wherever that may be, has been exposed to a deepfake? Like, I don't know that I've seen one that influenced my decision-making process, but I don't know that I haven't either.
Right.
So a lot of us saw the President Zelensky deepfake, right? But I wasn't laying down arms, and I think it was so broadly spread that, I'm not in Ukraine. So I think it was so widely spread, media covered it, it wasn't legit.
Right.
But I don't know if there are any others that impacted me per se, or Rachel maybe, that we aren't aware of, but it did influence our thinking. Have there been any studies?
Yeah.
Not particularly. I think the study is fairly difficult to conduct.
How would you even do it?
The other thing is, if you're not aware of the something is a deepfake, it's very hard to say, I've seen a deepfake, right? So that
right. That's the problem with this disinformation, Rachel. You can't find it.
Yes, yeah. But there's other interesting. Well, there's other. I'll say causes of this problem because, I think one of the dominating negative use of deepfake technology is in pornography, and especially this is called revenge pornography. So after a breakup, a former spouse or, boyfriend, usually the victims are women. And they use their access to the footage, the private footage of the victim, and make a pornographic video or image and planted the victim's face into it. And I was actually involved in one of the legal cases as an expert witness. And what I learned is, many cases for that particular case, it doesn't matter if the video looks real or not. It's sometimes some of the videos are made very crudely.
Right.
Visible artifacts is all over the places. There's no difficulty for anybody to tell this is a fake video, but it still got a lot of people viewing it. So I think so humans are very complicated in this sense because we go online searching for information not just for knowing the truth, but a lot of time with other kind of intentions. And sometimes we're just looking for the most eye-catching, the most sensational, the most interesting, exciting, whatever. And that usually is not the true information because truth is boring, right? And so I think that the deepfakes, so that's why most known deepfakes are in that genre. It got a lot of people's attention because it's showing something abnormal, out of the normal and interesting. But as far as I know, there's no. There are some study about how many deepfakes we know existing online, but that's only the tip of the iceberg, and nobody really know how many we actually have. Yeah.
Right. I mean, how could you know? I mean, that's
a good point. That's a really good point.
Now, I was reading an article, and I think it was from March last year, where you were talking about. One way to spot a deepfake is in the eyes and something about the reflection in the eyes. Could you talk a little bit about that? And is that still the case, or has the technology already evolved so quickly that that's not a telltale sign anymore?
Well, I think, So this is one. I will answer the second part of your question first, and then talk about that work. This is actually a nature of this line of work I learned throughout 20 years working in this area. Unlike other scientific research fields where you deal with a natural phenomenon, is something doesn't change. It's just by its very nature complicated, difficult to understand, but it's a fixed problem and you just tackle it. For this line of work, it's more like a cybersecurity. We're basically dealing with adversarials. And on top of this, so the problem by itself is very dynamic. And on top of that, the current scientific research model is we develop some methods, we publish in a paper, we basically share this with everyone. So that, the adversarials can take advantage of that and improve their algorithm. So I think it's always a cat and mouse game. And I think in this case, it's a very tiny cat with a big mouse, and the mouse has a lot of resources and money. So it's a kind of competition or arm race that we are sort of on the losing end because of that. Right. And just think about how much incentive for those people making deepfakes in comparison with we trying to expose them, right? But that's I don't want to be over pessimistic. I think we're catching up. But it's always dynamic. So whenever we figure out something, I'm sure at certain stage, at certain point, someone will be able to fix their models and remove that. So coming back to this, I mean that's something we observed, and is particularly applicable for synthetic human faces. So these are, there's a model known as Generative Adversarial Neural Network. We usually use the short name GAN for it. Yes. And the GAN models have been shown to have the ability to create highly realistic human faces. And if you put them side on side, it's very, very hard to tell apart from real human faces and those synthetic faces. And what is more important is there's a recent study showing to human subjects both the synthetic faces and real human faces. And turns out that most of the human viewers view the synthetic faces as more trusting, more friendly.
Just our luck, Rachel.
And that's that's why those online trolls they set up fake social accounts on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook. Instead of using stealing somebody else's images used as a photograph. They now use GAN generated images simply because it's harder to trace and it's also and they also look better. So this is the problem we have to deal with. So we want to tell if an image is a real face or is generated by this model. Right. Now, so the model is quite powerful, being able to create all those high fine details in hair, on the skin, and so on. But we also figure out that the model has an Achilles heel. And this is the kind of interesting observation. It's kind of like we have an aha moment. We have enough number of this kind of images, and I stare into those images. There's always something kind of funny looking at them. They all look real. And then one day I realized that the two eyes, when you look at the reflections, our eyes is a very amazing organ on human body. It's the only one that have a regular geometric shape. So the iris part is almost close to a perfect sphere. And not only that, it's like a mirror. It's almost like a perfect mirror. It reflects light very, very, very effectively. So if we are somebody taking a photograph, close up portrait photograph of us, if there's anything in the scene that either emitting light or reflecting light, like Rachel, in your room right now, there's a light there. And that light, when it reaches your eyes, it will leave an image, and that image is a reflection. And of course, in comparison with the size of the room, the distance between our eyes is very small. And the eyes are, if we assume, roughly the two eyes are in the same planar, in the same plane, then they are roughly looking at the same things, right? So very intuitive, visually expect, whatever the two eyes see are roughly the same, right? And that boils down to, if we look at the reflections, the highlights, the specular reflections, they should also be similar because the two eyes are essentially looking at the same scene, at the same time. But when we look at the GAN generated images, it's different. So even those GAN models are very powerful, capturing all this nuance of, human faces. it has trouble understanding this basic physics, and it's not a rocket science. It's very simple piece of physical physical constraint that the two eyes need to look at the same thing. So when we look at the reflections from the two eyes of GAN generated images, they are very different. It's almost like the two eyes are looking at two different scenes at the same time.
Wow.
So that should be easy to fix. Shouldn't that be easy to fix?
It can be fixed easily by just copying, one eye to the other, right?
Right.
But that's not, there are two reasons that is not a perfect fix. For one, the two eyes, the two images are, as I said, they're similar, but they're not exactly the same. So if you just copy paste, we can do all the geometric analysis, and you can see that they shouldn't be exactly the same. There should be a slight shift, and we can calculate that shift, and we can know if they are exactly the same copy, and that's equally unlikely.
So that's one of the ways your software can determine whether it's real or a deepfake.
Yes, we use that as a cue, and I think the kind of advantage of this cue is very intuitive. I can explain this to everyone, and they immediately understand why we make that decision, right? But on the fixing side, so that simple fix works to a certain extent, but cannot fool this algorithm. But if they can fix this by giving a lot more data, and specifically with data about the reflections to be consistent on both eyes. And I have to say, all these deepfake generation models, they are as smart as the data we feed them. So the first round, we are able to capture these artifacts because the first round of generation model, whoever trained these models are not, careful enough to put data, specifically emphasize, putting this kind of data there. And they actually need a lot more data to make this constraint to happen coherently. So it was fixed. I think this new round, there's a new, very recent model coming from the second generation. We now have the third generation of that images. And they're now, you still can see, I because I see enough number of those images, I can still see slight off of those reflections. But, roughly when you look at them without too much attention, they look pretty realistic now. So that is one, that's the very nature of this problem. But what are we trying to do here is always looking for those Achilles heels of the model. So another thing we also, after the discovery of this reflection pattern, we have also identified, the shape of the iris. So, the shape of the iris is the central circular opening of our eyes. And for healthy adults, the circle of the iris are almost perfectly circular. They look like a circle. In the GAN generated images, we have an algorithm that can automatically extract the iris shape, and we can compare that with a perfect circle. It turns out that the second generation of the GAN models do not have a good circular shape, and that is also a very strong cue. But we need to look into those details where the model ignores, and we can pick it up, use as a detection. So we're playing a lot of detective work, but we translate that detection, the intuition for detection into algorithms. So we want to do this, automatically with an algorithm people can use instead of asking people. Of course, a lot of people after they read the paper, they start to pay attention to the eye region. But I think as a researcher, our ultimate goal is develop, incorporate all these kind of cues into an automatic detection algorithm.
But it's got to be hard if you're watching a video on your iPhone where you can't see the eyes very clearly. They're small, and you just see it and believe it. And I've got to believe that's one of the bigger consumption devices people use these days, whether they're on YouTube or Facebook or wherever. How hard is the audio? I'm assuming that's easier than the video to fake. Actually not. I was surprised by this fact.
but let me say a little bit about the other, when those media are shown on small screens. So, using this kind of physiological or physical cues is only one approach we rely on to detect deepfakes. We have another approaches which are looking for something that is truly invisible to human eyes, but only visible to algorithms. So you can sort of think about this in the analogy of an X-ray. X-ray shed on human body will help us to see something otherwise naked eye cannot see. So we have an algorithm looking for signatures from those deepfake media. When they were generated, fundamentally, they are different from real media. And real media come from a camera or a microphone, capture a physical event in the physical world, actually happened. But this kind of media are created using an algorithm completely out of vacuum and are digital. So that fundamental difference actually will land in some differences at the signals when we look at them as a sequence of numbers. Those differences are not as intuitive as the eye reflection or iris shape. But nevertheless, we can have algorithm. If we train the algorithm on a large set of fake media and the real media, we could have some approach, some level of confidence to pick out fake media that have similar signatures as things we have seen previously. So I think the question to Eric, the answer to Eric's question is we have other approaches complementary to what we have described. And in this area, it's always like in the pharmaceutical industry, no medicine gonna be the magical medicine. We have to have a compound solution to this. Now, coming back to the topic about audio, it's very interesting that audio synthesis is actually harder than images. And I think what the fundamental reason is not really too much of the technical, but mostly because our audio system, human auditory system, is very different from our visual system. And our auditory system is particularly sensitive to artifacts. So if there's anything that is a little bit off, our ear is very sensitive to that. On the other hand, if we have an image, have a few pixels off, our eyes are not very good at picking those artifacts to a certain extent. So the audios, if we have a little bit, like noises, like those kind of abrupt, abnormal sounds in those audios, we can pick it up easily with our ears. So it takes longer, but I have to say at this moment, the audio synthesis algorithms are catching up. In my lab, we have examples where we can, generate voices of celebrities like, President Obama or President Biden using algorithms. And they now, when you listen to them, if you listen to them very carefully, you can still pick up those artifacts. But if you just listen to them once, it's not, it's not, I would say it's for casual listener, those artifacts can just, go under the radar. We also have an audio detection algorithm for audio deepfakes. And that is again based on some interesting physical observations. So one thing, it is through this line of work, I, have an in-depth study of human auditory system and find it absolutely amazing. So one thing, we probably are not aware of is the fact that, our ears have this amazing ability to discount something we call local phases. Okay. So let me explain what this means. While we were talking here, right? Suppose we're talking face to face in a room. What happened is my mouth is making the sound. And that sound is a wave and transmitted in space and reach your ear, and you hear my voice. But it actually is not that simple, because when I'm creating the sound wave does not go into one single path starting from the mouth to your ear. Actually, it goes everywhere, right? So it goes to the wall, goes to the ceiling, and it bounces back. And, you this is how the audio engineers, mixing the sounds, right? They want to have all the sounds kind of mixing together. And, very simple physics showing that, if you're hearing the sounds, you're actually getting multiple copies of my voice from different paths. And these different copies, even though they're the same sound, they arrive at your ear with slightly different time because they go through different paths, right? If it go straight line or go to the ceiling and then
you get a lot of reflection.
Yes, you got reflection. You get multiple passes, and sound go in air with the fixed speed. So that means they will reach your ear at a different time, and that different time in signal is we call local phases. There's a difference in local phases. So our auditory system have this very interesting property of discounting that local phase differences. And, it's important because otherwise, and we actually know there are no cases of patients who, due to genetic defect, doesn't have this ability. So when they cannot hear anybody talking in a stable way, because all they're hearing is this hodgepodge of sounds, mixing at different timing. It's almost like you in a room listening to multiple people talking at the same time. It's very hard to find out that particular message, right? And our ear can do this very adaptively when the arrival time is truly very different. Like in the echo, you shot in a valley, there's a echo, the sounds coming back at a very different time. Now you hear two voices instead of one, right? So it's very amazing. And at this point, we don't really know the biological reason how this is here. So we actually take that as a hint to analyze local phases, because all we hear, our ears or our brain discount those differences in local phases and then somehow combine them into a single signal. And we're only sensitive to the amplitude or the energy. So that's how you can hear me speaking, right? So whatever coming to our ears that have the same energy profile, we treat that as a good sound. And so there are AI synthesized audios. When we listen to them, they are very natural. But we take this as a hint. We look into the local phases. Since our ears are not sensitive to local phases, when those algorithms generating those voices, they don't care about, how they're going to arrange local phases, right? And most likely the local phases of a real sound is completely random because it goes through different paths. But for those algorithms, their local phases has very specific relations. So you can identify those kind of, structures in those phases that shouldn't, show up in natural voices. And then we use that hint and develop an algorithm, again, like an X-ray. You look into this direction where, we will not be able to hear or, see with the waveform, but we can capture that differences in local phases. And that is an algorithm we developed in 2018. Yeah.
Wow. That's crazy.
So you've got all these techniques to detect deepfakes.
Right.
How easy is it to make them?
You mean developing the method, or how easy to make deepfakes?
No, just a user. Somebody wants to create a deepfake.
Eric's looking for tips. He's got a side hustle in mind, I think.
Okay.
That's where he's going.
That's okay. I got you. I think that's actually one of the major reasons why deepfake is dangerous. It is not like, we cannot make face swapping videos, realistic human faces or voices 10 years or even 20 years ago. If we watch Hollywood movie, right, we see all those special effects, blue screens, voice over. We already have the capacity of making them. But the problem is those are for people with special training, special equipment, big budgets. What deepfake changed is now you can make them. Everybody can make them. All you need is a computer, internet, a fast computer, internet, and a large hard disk, right? And you run, and you have, and the algorithm is all, many of the algorithms are freely available online, and somebody may even package them as apps on your cell phone. So the democratization of this capacity is what make us concerned.
Agreed.
So I think that's really, the problem. And if you say these days, I think audios are a little bit lagging behind, but there are several, startups providing this as services. For face swapping videos, there are apps and well-packaged softwares, and also open source code on GitHub, and everybody can download them, can use them. So it's becoming easier and easier.
So I can do it myself. I can outsource it. Pretty easy to get. And the other thing, it doesn't have to be 100%. I mean, if you detect a deep fake here, I can try again and again, right?
Right.
That's right. That's, again, as I said, this is dynamic, right? So it's always a, back and forth.
Another problem on the show, Rachel, we can't fix today.
Well, I know we're coming up on time here, so I did want to kind of close out our last question so you could share with our listeners about your DeepFake-o-meter, which I believe has a very high success rate, yes, in detecting deepfakes.
Yeah. Well, I will say the DeepFake-o-meter is our effort to bundle all the existing deepfake detection technology and make them usable for the users. Unlike making deepfakes, detecting deepfakes, there's really a vacuum of services provided in this way. But on the other hand, there's a lot of research also for detection algorithms. But those research are usually coded on GitHub. And for somebody who just want to analyze an image or video, it's
right.
It's
nobody's mom is going to do that unless they're in the business.
Exactly, and they need to know how to set up the environment, to download the code, to compile them, and run them, right? Yeah. So all those are actually a hurdle for users to take advantage of those detection algorithms. And so that's the DeepFake-o-meter. So we didn't develop all the detection algorithm, although we have a few in there. But what we're trying to do here is actually collecting known open source detection methods and put them in this platform. Right. So, users can just, pick and select a subset and run on their media. So that's what we're trying to do. It got a lot of uses, but also being abused, I'll say.
Really?
We have got several times got hacked. People trying to do denial of service, or we have seen abnormal trials of users, trying to run the algorithm. I think sometimes they just want to test out the detectors so that they have a very high frequency of trying it out and getting the results. And these are all the things where we're not unexpected to us. So it's there's a lot of I would say interesting experience in setting up the platform. Right now, the platform is in its stabilizing stage, and we're trying to augment it with more detection algorithms. So we're looking online, and whenever there's a code that we can incorporate, we'll look into that. Yeah.
Very cool. And I highly recommend everybody go to YouTube and look up the DeepFake-o-meter tutorial, because it's really cool and so easy to use if you want to try to see if you've got a deepfake on your hands.
Rachel, I have one more question if we have time.
Okay, one more. Close it
Dr.
up.
Liu, is this really you, or is this a deepfake?
I will leave this for you to guess.
How great would that be if you were faking us out the whole show?
Hilarious.
Okay. Well,
but seriously,
that requires more than a deepfake. It requires somebody who can think, and I think deepfakes only provide the facade.
Well, that was really leading to my question. What does the future look like? I mean, is it really some kind of AI that can think and respond and look and sound like you, but it's not you? Like, is that where this ends up eventually? Or what does the future look like in your opinion? Like your avatar, like your deepfake avatar? I don't know.
Yeah, that's certainly a dystopia future. But I'm in terms of that, I think I cannot tell the future, but it does seem that we are approaching toward that direction. Let me say it this way. But I think the future of deepfakes is we're going to see more realistic synthetic media being made more, more cheaply and easily. And also not only things like faces, voices are being fabricated. We're also going to see natural scenes, objects, cars, your pets, and also whole body, whole human body actions will be generated. And I think that trend will be unstoppable. People are, trying out AI algorithm to, meet up these challenges. And actually, I want to say, although we think deepfakes mostly about their negative impacts, their existence is actually a tour de force of the AI technology. We can create realistic human faces is actually a huge achievement for AI researchers. So I think that development will not stop. But I would always say, deepfakes directly coming out of algorithms will always carry some kind of artifacts.
Right.
And it takes human in the loop to fix all those artifacts. So I think I don't see humans going to completely disappear from this whole scene, being replaced by our digital twins or, digital existence in any, near future. I think humans are going to play actually a more and more important role in this. But that's really, what we have to, be aware of, and developing better detection algorithms.
Rachel, I've yet to find the artist, the computer, the algorithm, the application that can make me look good. So there's still hope in the future.
There is. Never give up hope, Eric. Never give up hope. Well, Dr. Siwei Lyu, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been so much fun. My head's like...
Yeah, as always, so educational.
Right, exactly.
We learned so much. Good luck with the DeepFake-o-meter and fighting the good fight here.
Yes. We'll keep doing that, and we live and learn, and a lot of lessons we're going to incorporate into our next iteration of the system and making it better, making it easier to use for the users. So thank you very much for your interest, and this is a great conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. And to all our listeners out there, thanks for joining us yet again for our weekly podcast. And again, don't forget, you smash that subscription button and you get a new, fresh, piping hot episode delivered straight to your email every Tuesday.
And it's real.
And it's real. Until next time, everyone, be safe.
Thanks for joining us on the To The Point Cybersecurity Podcast, brought to you by ForcePoint. For more information and show notes from today's episode, please visit www.forcepoint.com/govpodcast. And don't forget to subscribe and leave a review on Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts.